This time it should be, as they take it wide now. The finish is only metres away here. We're a bit obstructed by the motorbike, but Armstrong is on the left and Pantani is on the right, and they're coming up to the line now, and it's almost as if Armstrong is not making a big effort here, and Pantani is determined, and Pantani crosses the line. It almost looks as though Lance Armstrong was not interested in winning the stage.
Welcome back to the Cycling Iceberg podcast, everyone. That was commentary on the Mont Ventoux stage in Tour de France 2000. Pantani versus Armstrong. Armstrong gifting the yellow stage, regretting it, a Blitz attack later, huge controversy, a short-lived rivalry, perhaps the only rider Armstrong was ever afraid of. But before we can delve into the details of that story, I need to issue a quick apology. 2 episodes ago, I completely butchered the pronunciation of Peyragudes. I kept saying Peyragudes, which is definitely not the way to pronounce that. Into the first tour of the 21st century then. While the century had changed, that was pretty much everything. Technology, life standards, everything was pretty much still the same, despite some rigorous changes had been expected. New century, new me, but the Tour de France was kind of still expected to be a rematch of the 1999 edition. That edition was won by US Postal's Lance Armstrong, but he had gained most time on his rival in the first stage. His main rival that year was Alex Zülle from Banesto, but he crashed on the Passage du Gois. This year, it would be seen if Armstrong could beat Zülle in a clear fight. 2 other frequently mentioned favorites were Jan Ullrich from Team Telkom and Laurent Jalabert from Once. Mercato Uno's Marco Pantani was not mentioned as a favorite. In 1998, he had won the Giro and the Tour. He was known as a great climber for years, but now he finally mastered the time trialing skill as well. Sure, he wasn't a great time trialist, but it was good enough that his great climbing ability could compensate. He was expected to be a dominant force, a top-tier contender for maybe a decade. But while leading the 1999 Giro, deep in the final week, he got caught up in a doping scandal. A lot has been written about that doping scandal. Whether you believe the stories about mafia involvement, bribes or whatever, that's not that relevant for this story. Matter of fact is, he failed a doping test for having a red blood cell level that was too high, and he felt he was being used as a scapegoat. Set example in a battle for a clean sport, while he was simply doing what all the others did. The Italian spiraled into a depression due to this. The scandal haunted him for years to come. He suffered from a cocaine addiction. He barely left his house and didn't race at all after the 1999 Giro. In early 2000, Pantani was still a shadow of his former self. In March, he wrote an open letter announcing he would take a step back from the sport. This was allegedly to reduce media attention. Because without the media on his back, Il Pirata overcame his addiction and started training again. He made a surprise return to competition in the Giro. His team only announced his participation days before the race to avoid a media frenzy. Pantani was Italy's biggest cyclist and therefore always at the center of media attention. However, even the Italian media were realistic and didn't expect miracles. This gave Pantani some relief. He didn't enjoy the pressure that it created. As expected, Pantani was mostly invisible in the Giro due to his lacking preparation. However, by the 3rd week, he started to show signs of improvements by finishing 2nd in the mountain stage to Briançon. This gave fans a glimmer of hope that Pantani could aim for a top 10 in the Tour de France. The Tour, however, didn't start well at all for Pantani. A bad prologue was expected, but he also lost a lot of time in the Pyrenees. A turning point came in stage 12, which finished on Mont Ventoux. By then, Armstrong had taken a commanding lead of 4 minutes on Jan Ullrich in the Pyrenees. He was however eager to win on the mythical Ventoux. He could add that to his poster card book. He put his US Postal team to work, and with 9 kilometers to go, Pantani had to let Armstrong and 4 others go already. Pantani played yo-yo at the back of the group. He was dropped, came back, dropped again, but again managed to come back. He looked reborn after returning the 2nd time, because he went on the attack with 4 kilometers to go. Pantani's initial attack was countered by Roberto Heras from Kelme. The Italian, however, didn't give up. He attacked, again and again, again. 5 attacks from leading position. Still, he couldn't get away. Pantani briefly held back, just to attack again. This time, Pantani opened a significant gap. He looked strong, but Santiago Bortello from Kelme was coming from behind. Pantani let Botero come close, 5 meters. But then he killed any hope with another attack. It looked like Pantani was back at his best, on his way to the stage win. But then there was a yellow shadow appearing from behind. It was Armstrong. He looked almost like Pantani, sprinting in the drops to get to the wheel. And he did so, with just 1500 meters to go. It was an iconic situation. Armstrong in the yellow jersey and Pantani in the full pink, resembling as if he was the winner of the Giro, the leader of the Giro. Of course he wasn't, but his team had gone for a clever, full pink outfit, marketing Pantani as the Italian from the Giro versus Tour. Together they went under the Flamme Rouge, and there it was Armstrong who attacked, distancing Pantani. However, it appeared that America needed to hold back, and Pantani came back to the wheel. Everyone expected a sprint, but the yellow jersey didn't contest stage victory. He showed he was the strongest, and then decided to gift the stage to Pantani. Pantani saw this gesture as an insult. He told reporters directly after the line, Pantani does not need Armstrong to give him a victory. When he said faster, faster, he was trying to provoke me. If Armstrong thinks the tour is over, he is wrong. Upon being informed about Pantani's statements, Armstrong gave his own reaction. He said, I respect Marco. It's unfortunate he is showing his true colors now. I felt it was a gift on the Ventoux, and I also feel like it was a mistake to give the gift. On the Ventoux, the strongest man should win. With his stage win, Pantani moved up 12 places in GC, but he was still 10 minutes behind Armstrong. The expectation was that Pantani could make the top 5 from his 12th position, but the Italian really meant what he said. He would attack and try and win the Tour. A few days later, Armstrong and Pantani attacked each other multiple times on the Izoard, but without any success. Pantani netted 5 seconds by attacking on the downhill to Briançon. The next day, Pantani went on the offensive again. He launched multiple attacks and finally broke Armstrong with 5 kilometers to go. He flew to the finish in Courchevel, seemingly without any effort. He took the stage win nearly a minute ahead of Armstrong. He was one of a handful of riders to beat Prime Armstrong in a summit finish. This stage win put Pantani 6th in the general classification, but he was still 9 minutes down. A podium was possible, but Pantani didn't care about that. He wanted the win. He had been personally insulted by Armstrong. Directly after his stage win in Courchevel, he plotted a plan for the next stage, which was the final mountain stage. With 130 kilometers to go, Pantani launched an all or nothing offense. Ulrich was the only one trying to follow, desperate to defend his podium spot. But the big German got dropped. The peloton was in a state of chaos. Nobody really knew what Pantani could do. He had come in as a question mark. How good was he? He'd won the 1998 Tour with a long-range attack, but this was even longer. What should they do? Should they chase? Should they burn their domestiques? Should they go after them himself? Armstrong wasn't sure. He dropped back to the team car to make a phone call with his doctor, Michel Ferrari. The Italian sports doctor, or doping doctor I should say, advised Armstrong to stay calm. US Postal took control of the peloton, and as they did that, Pantani's lead stabilized around the 2-minute mark. The undertaking was far too big for Pantani. He got disrupted by early breakaway riders, he didn't eat to save some time, and it was just a lot of work he needed to put in. He got caught by the peloton and completely bonked on the final climb. He finished 14 minutes down and then told reporters, I tried to blow up the Tour and I blew it. Pantani didn't start the next stage due to extreme diarrhea. Some speculated this was to avoid more doping controls, but that seems relatively unrealistic considering the fact he took a doping control after that massive attack. Many hoped that this tour revitalized Pantani's career, but it was the last time he performed at the highest level. Unlike Italians before him, Pantani had no Italian rival. Without a rivalry like Coppi Bartali or Moser Saroni, the Italian tifosi united behind Pantani. He was at the center of attention due to this. The media constantly wrote about him, and this was a big struggle for Pantani. The immense popularity, in combination with the doping cases, created a great sense of guilt and shame for Il Pirata. Pantani didn't receive the mental care he needed. He struggled with depression and had anonymous seasons in 2001 and 2002. The 2003 Giro was the last race of Pantani's career. He made a better impression, able to fight for the top 10 in the overall classification. He launched several attacks in the race, but came short of winning a stage. There were talks about a mid-season transfer to Bianchi, so he could race the Tour again, but negotiations collapsed. Instead of racing the Tour, Pantani checked himself into a psychiatric clinic to receive treatment for depressions, nervous disorders, drug addiction, and alcoholism. After rehab, Pantani told his fans to forget about Pantani the athlete. He said, "I still ride my bike, just to turn my legs, but cycling is the last thing on my mind. I've gained 15 kilos, and I have the physique of a little bull." Pantani traveled to Cuba, where he wrote in his passport, "The champion I was exists no more. He is far from the man that I have become. If my fans still cheer me, it's not through affection, but out of need of a personality. I've been humiliated for nothing. For 4 years, I've been in every court. There should be rules, yes, but they must apply equally to everyone." 4 months later, Pantani was found dead in a hotel room in Rimini. The cause was deemed to be an accidental cocaine overdose. Pantani's funeral was a mass event. There were at least 20,000 people who waited on the streets outside of the church in Cesinatico. Pantani's mother was not impressed by all this extensive media attention. She yelled, "You are all to blame for my son's death. What are you doing here?" In a later interview, Pantani's mom said he was managed by people who only thought about their own interest. Towards the end of his career, he was surrounded by scum and rabble. Pantani's death remained at the center of attention for years to come. Pantani's mom kept insisting her son was murdered. There have been several new investigations, some related to mafia involvement, but none have yielded new evidence. The Mont Ventoux has an iconic place in cycling history. There have been so many different stories, and the one you just heard is definitely unique in its own way. Sure, there's been instances of riders gifting stage wins, but normally it was to a teammate or to make a deal. A GC rider gifts a stage win to somebody from the early break who's then worked at the end of the stage, some sort of formal understanding like that. But a GC rival gifting the stage win to one of his other rivals, that's pretty much unthinkable of. It reminded me a little bit of last year's stage in the Tour, stage 20, when Vingegaard did all the attacking for a second place, but then Pogačar came around in the final meters to sprint to the stage win. Should he have gifted the stage there? I don't really think so. Armstrong said himself it was a mistake to gift that stage win, and I would agree. It's just a bit weird to see GC rivals gifting stages to each other. That doesn't really fit within the sport of cycling. 2 more things about this story. First, Pantani is perhaps the only rider that actually frightened Armstrong. His climbing ability was from another planet. Prime Pantani was just from a total different order. He was so explosive, punchy, and could keep that up for so long that he was a phenomenal opponent. While he was 10 minutes down, the fact that Armstrong took his attacks on the Izoard serious should tell you enough. That wasn't just out of spite or because there was a rivalry created here due to the interview comments. No, Armstrong was genuinely worried. And the fact that he needed to drop to the team car in that 130-kilometer raid of Pantani tells you everything you need to know. He was shitting himself over Pantani. Of course, it's also kind of a tragic story, right? It's like the one time that Pantani can come back, but he never really was himself anymore after that case in the 1999 Giro. There's quite some instances of riders from the doping era that they're really struggling with there. Frank van den Broek, another athlete who tested positive, feeling like he was doing the same as all the others, but being singled out, and he too suffered from depression and addiction. That's also something that Jan Ullrich dealt with during his career and also after his career. There isn't some sort of silver lining to be found here that Pantani at least won 2 stages or something. It really was just a person who didn't receive the proper care, eager to race, not really sure what to do, what to go about, the team pressing him because sponsorship money, and while the team wasn't as relentless as some other teams, obviously they were still paying Pantani a lot of money for him to race, to win these big races. So He clearly just suffered, and without the right guidance completely went down the wrong trajectory. And about his death, I don't really want to get into the speculation about the Chinese food which was in the room, which he apparently didn't like, and that there were other people there. I mean, there could be truth to it. There have been investigations that pointed out some loopholes in the eventual reports, but at the same time, there have been many investigations. Nothing has been found, and at the end of the day, it was just a very sad ending for Pantani, and also kind of explains why he's still loved in such a large part of Italy. Tomorrow, the 2025 Tour de France continues. We go up to Mont Ventoux in a hockey stick stage, hopefully a nice battle for the stage win.